Are you one of those planning to make Elon Musk much more richer by buying a one-way ticket to Mars because of huge water prices on Earth? Please don't, at least before you watch this video. Hi everyone. Before I start talking about how they make money on water, may I suggest that you also watch my other video, How Ordinary Folks Make Money on Water, from my YouTube channel, Burry Water Solutions and Technologies. So to get updated, hit the subscription icon below and click on the notification bell. I'm Mel Bernil. I am a chemical engineer, used to work for different chemical industries such as water engineering and construction, petrochemical and chlor-alkali, and fertilizer companies. Have you noticed that, say, about 4 or 5 decades, in the last 4 or 5 decades, it's always doom and gloom news about water. Water crisis here and water crisis there. Like this one, the UNICEF reported that there are 2.1 billion people globally lack safe water at home. 4.5 billion people globally have no toilets at home that safely manage excreta. Only one faucet, 2 hours to reach and 2 hours queuing. Only one well for too many water features. On top of them all, you can only use 8% of the Earth's fresh water for household consumption. Is that really true? Here comes another problem in which is akin to rubbing salt to a wound. Distribution of Earth, well, represented here in a cube, is virtually almost all water cannot be used for domestic consumption by humans. And on top of that, the water sources are all water stressed, practically water stressed all around the world. That's why in the book of Charles Fishman, The Big Thirst, he said, water is the most vital resource in every aspect of human endeavor, but the economics of water are mass of tradition, wishful thinking, and poor planning. So, why not show these many faces like this enjoying level 2 water system with multiple faucets? Or why not tell everybody that to worry because inventions can tap large volume of water someday from underneath our feet. This is the primary water from the Earth's mantle. In fact, Extreme Tech has reported that the scientists have discovered 400 miles beneath our feet are oceans 3 times over. And deepest water found in 1,000 is found 1,000 kilometers on the way to the Earth's core. AMA or advanced metering infrastructure could also help non-revenue water or NRW to drop down to a realistic 15%. Around the world, the average is 30%. Reducing this to a realistic 15% would mean more water for the needy and more money for those into water business, especially in the government. Drip irrigation invented by Israel is about 15% more efficient than regular one. Doing this technique would again result in a lot more water available. Recycling and reuse, especially for grain need and agriculture, will help also. Now in 2014, it was estimated that the water business is worth 500 billion dollars. Then they projected then that by 2020, that is today, it would be around $1 trillion. So multi-billionaires like Goldman Sachs jump into the water business and they call water the petroleum for the next century. That's why some reports say rise up to buy the world's water. These are talking about the joint venture between Alaska, through Alaska Bottling, and is to say global to tap Blue Lake fresh water and export it to India. And they are planning to export 100,000 cubic meters per day. Now there are some delay due to some requirements, but not far behind is also Canadian Bulk, who wants to do the same. And they are planning 50% more than Alaska at 152,000 cubic meters per day. That's 55 million cubic meters annually. Now, Forbes have reported how to analyze profit from the next big scarce resource. What's that next big scarce resource? That's water. Per Harvard Business, by 2030, water supplies will satisfy only 60% of the global demand and less than 50% in many developing regions. That's 10 years from now, if there is nothing can be done. But there is something can be done about it. Like this guy, he's doing something impossible. Scott Slater, he's planning to extract water from underneath the desert in Mojave Desert, California. Look at this. Look at this desert in California. And then, well, he has really proven it. They have one pump test well with water coming out from underneath the desert. Then ecologize that and try to have this slightly slanted report about Wall Street is buying up the world's water. Like familiar mega banks and investing powerhouses such as Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, UBS, Deutsche Bank, Credit Suisse, etc. are all consolidating their control over water. Even wealthy tycoons buying lakes, etc. Boone Pickens has a conventional wisdom on how to make money on water. He has more water rights than any American in USA. He can abstract from Ogallala Aquifer approximately 200,000 acre feet or 65 billion gallons of water a year. Fortunately, he died last year at the age of 91. This is his Ogallala Aquifer in the vicinity of Colorado, Kansas, South Dakota, etc. The Ogallala Aquifer is about 174,000 square miles, equivalent to 85 million football fields. And its saturated thickness is up to 1,200 feet or 366 meters. But the sad thing is, the water there is depleting. But ordinary citizens, especially in Africa, Asia, and Pacific, like Philippines, can have a smaller version of that as long as they can comply with the requirements when applying for water permits or water rights. Social and political engineering skill is a necessity in this aspect, especially if indigenous people are involved. The water system from the watershed to the faucet must be designed, engineered, and constructed properly in accordance with the design criteria, and the completed project is performance tested continuously for at least 72 hours with operators and management trained with the aid of operating manuals and hands-on training for at least 3 months before project turnover. Should not overlook, by the way, the water safety standard established by NSF 61, National Safety Foundation, or ANSE 61, on materials being used directly in contact with water product. So failure to establish the appropriate design criteria, design engineering, etc. as aforementioned would is tantamount to committing the same failure as UNICEF was program, which was 30 to 50% failure, equivalent to billions of dollars lost. In this case of project, $5 billion. But in Israel, they look the whole thing holistically. So they only get 1/3 of their water supply from nature because they don't have much natural resources anyway. So most of their water supply comes from man-made, so to say. Desalinated water comprise 30% of their water. But they have more than enough water in their country. That's why their faucets and showers are always have water 24/7, 365 a year, and they produce lots of nutritious foods. So many water crises, as aforementioned, can make an astute entrepreneur smell money. Every problem or crisis in this universe makes smart people earn boatloads of money. It's just simply the law of supply and demand that most of us learn from basic economics in our university days. Peter Drucker said, convert a problem into an opportunity. And Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So this is how they make money on water. It follows the same basic principle in any investment. So true enough, in this year, 2020, the billionaires didn't let a good crisis go to waste. Instead, their assets rose by 20%, 27% during this pandemic, which is awkward because, according to WHO, extreme poverty will be experienced this year for the first time in more than 2 decades due to the pandemic. So, how do you follow Peter Drucker and Ram Emanuel's wisdom? Number one, invest in water-related ETFs or exchange-traded funds. The fund has the goal to invest in companies spanning from other resources. Expense ratio could be bet higher at 0.63% than many of the best Vanguard funds. One of the reasons is that fund invests in global companies as opposed to US companies only. Some of the top holdings in the fund include the following: Asylum, American Water Works, Denair, Pentair, Viola, etc. Number two, another way to invest in water is via S&P Global Water Index, which also tracks companies around the world that are related to the water business, or through your local stock market. How to do this? You can watch my video in the next video. Also hit the description button and click on the notification bell to get an update. To create diversified exposure to the global market, water market, all companies can be divided into two main groups: water utilities and infrastructure, water equipment and materials. On the first one, it includes areas such as water supply, wastewater, water treatment, water drilling, water purification, water utilities, water testing, sewer and pipeline construction. The second one, the focus on areas such as filtration equipment, water treatment equipment, plumbing equipment, water treatment chemicals, pumps and motors, valves, RO and nano UF membranes, instrumentation, and control softwares. This is one example, the membrane for RO and the process control. Number three, invest in water rights. Water rights give investors the right to use water from a source such as river or lake. For individual applicant or company applicant, the total cost of acquiring a water right or water permit depends on the area or extent of social and political engineering needed, and the purpose of the water right and the requirements to be complied with. It could range from few hundreds to some $1,000s, but if you are only already buying an existing water rights or water permits, then it would be quite expensive. As an investor, you can rent out the water rights or to farmers, municipalities, or even corporations. Aqua Capital Management, for example, is a water rights and investment company that accumulates water rights in water-scarce regions across the globe. Selling Colorado water is another one in this business. In Philippines, mostly applicants just go directly to the National Water Resource Board. Invest in stocks. Being an individual water stock is another way to invest directly in water-related projects. Water companies traded around the world include Aqua America, American Water Works, did that name Australia, Fluence Australia, Manila Water Philippines, Manila Philippines, and Hyflux, Singapore, and Savis, Brazil. Usually the easiest and fastest way to earn a relatively higher profit in the stock market is when one can avail of an IPO. Note, if you make contact me at Bernal, if you at gmail.com if you need some quickie about investing in the stock market online. These are the companies. Number 5, invest in disruptive technologies. Well, Australian terrain technology use ground-based ionization using millimeter microwave to induce rainfall at will, based on the natural ionization of clouds by cosmic rays. Back in the day, and still even now, rainfall inducement was done by injecting silver iodide into the clouds acid in the ionization process to get rain. But rain is actually natural way caused by cosmic rays from the exploding supernova, and these are very, very fine particles. But when solar wind or solar fluxes are very strong, cosmic rays are driven away and they cannot form a cloud condensation and therefore no rain. So the other one is the barrel, which is a new phase of digital desalination. This would be plug and play. The biggest one is concentrated solar power. Well, there are two types of this. The one called tower type, where there is a tower at the center. The other one is a throw type, which is it's just a throw, and then there is a tube passing through every throw. Now for this one, all the mirrors, it's not PV, solar PV or photovoltaic. These are mirrors reflecting the sun's rays to the top of the tower, which has a coil, wherein from inside the coil is a high temperature oil that is flowing around. So when the sunlight reflected from the mirrors hit the coil, the oil, high temperature oil is heated up and it goes to a heat exchange system and to produce a sort of a battery where a molten salt is heated up to absorb the energy from the sun that it can use when there is no sun or any reason that you cannot produce or you cannot get sunlight. And the part of the heat is being absorbed in a steam boiler to produce steam that can run turbine to produce electricity. In this case, 700 megawatt CSP Mohammed bin Asid Al Maktoum Solar Park harness energy about 5 to 8 hours a day. That would be enough for a 24 hours need of energy. The problem here is investment is quite high, but the energy density and reliability, and it is not subject to intermittency. This one. So one of those who are making use of this technology is Sandrop Farms in a desert in South Australia. Their end products, lots of tomatoes. They're supplying 15% of Australia's demand. So if they can, in spite of the expensive uh, concentrated solar power investment, but if they can sell or they can compete in the market of Australia in tomatoes, that means the overall project is really very feasible. Not only probably in Australia, but any other areas where there is desert and a nearby sea, or not even a desert, but areas where there is no water supply. So this is it. This is it. So in that Michael Burry's strategy to balance with water-rich environment is not so disruptive after all, since one can buy a very cheap land in a desert and put up a concentrated solar facility, CSP, and greenhouse to grow lots of foods and no pesticides. Here's the tomato plantation of Sandrop in the middle of the desert. This is another type of, as I said, concentrated solar power system. This is called parabolic throw type. There is no tower in the center. So the parabolic, so this is the throw, parabolic. This is still using mirrors. And the tube at the center is where the high temperature fluid is flowing through. It's being heated by the light reflected from the mirrors in this individual um, parabolic throw. So it's like that. Now this is the, whether it's parabolic throw or concentration tower, it it's similar system because they only differ in the absorption of sunlight in this area. So there's the hot oil, as I explained earlier, is utilized to absorb much of the heat in a molten salt, and some are converted to steam to produce power through a steam turbine. And the condensate, some of the heat from the condensate may be used for heating if necessary. Another technology is wave power. This is 5 times more dense than solar and 10 times more dense than wind. For 100 megawatt installation, the energy cost is just 14 cents per kilowatt hour. But a bigger installation would lower the cost. Electricity produced used to power up the desalination facility to produce cheap, undrinkable water. Now, desalination project is not really disruptive, but I put it under disruptive technology in the sense that we used to hear desalination plant that are in the range of 1.5 million gallons per day to about 50 million gallons per day. Now, this is the construction cost of desalination plant up to 100 million gallons per day, which is expected by 2020 instead of about around $6 or $1 billion per million gallons per day to drop to 5.5, and by 2035 it will decrease more to about 3 billion per million cubic gallons, a million gallons of water per day product. So this is being studied thoroughly by Nikolai Voskov. So notice that he has these projections. Um, in 5 years ago, this is the range of the cost of water, zero point 0.8 to 1.6, and this is around this year. This is around this one, zero point 0.6 to 1. Now, 10 years from now, even less than 10 years from now, the cost of desalination would be $0.50 only maximum. It is because the construction cost has also dramatically reduced, the energy consumption dramatically reduced, and the membrane productivity has increased a lot. The biggest one in this business is the Ras Al Khair in Saudi Arabia, which is more than a million cubic meter per day, which is equivalent to 174 million gallons per day. So that's what I'm talking, that this becomes disruptive because that's a lot of water. You can imagine. It's just like, remember back earlier that I was talking to Alaska tapping Blue Lake to export 100,000 cubic meters per day. But in this case, it's 1 million cubic meters per day, and Canada, 150,000 cubic meters per day. It's no match to 1 million cubic meters per day. So this is some kind of a disruptive technology. Now, if the Saudis are the biggest in terms of hybrid system, hybrid in the sense that they produce desalination water using their conventional flash evaporation and membrane reverse osmosis. Israel is the biggest in terms of pure membrane reverse osmosis at 624,000. Imagine 624,000 cubic meters per day. Now, another disruptive technology, although long time ago, like in California, aqueduct is being used to transfer water. But in this particular case, in China, the water is moving from south to the north at thousands of miles. So, and the volume is very large, 44 or roughly 45 billion cubic meters of water annually. And they spend $62 billion for it, the whole system. Now, this one is really a disruptive technology. The Lockheed Martin, who are supposed to be in missiles business or armaments, or F-52 or the F-35 Raptors, they are immersing themselves into water business by producing a membrane from graphene derived from carbon. Now, graphene is a two-dimensional material with strength 350 times stronger than steel, and their product is patented name as perforin. The advantage here is graphene membrane is quite porous such that the energy usage of desalination would be much lower, say at least 20% lower. Number 6 is invest in farmland. This is the idea of Michael Burry. You know Michael Burry, the one who got tons of money because of the 2008 financial crisis, said transporting water is impractical for both political and physical reasons. So buying up water rights did not make a lot of sense to me. What became clear to me is that food is the way to invest in water.
I believe that agricultural land, productive agricultural land with water on site will be very valuable in the future. And I've put a good amount of money into that. So I'm investing in alternative investments as well as stocks.
Some of agricultural products with the water footprint, the top in the list, chocolate, cinnamon, down is pork and lentils. But surprisingly, rice only needs 580 gallons per pound of polished rice, much lower than pork and lentils. Number 7, build water bottling with bottle making facility and sell the products in bulk to hotels, big restaurants, big groceries, and other big time consumers. Well, the China's new richest person is doing this. In 1996, Zhong Xianshan established the Dongfu Spring in China, eastern coast, and now he has displaced Jack Ma as the China's richest person. Nestle is doing this. Before, Nestle was selling some sort of beverages, but what the heck? Selling only water would make more money. In fact, in this case, the people in Florida are complaining because Nestle is just paying $200 a year for the extraction of water, but they make a lot of money with it. So that is, folks. In conclusion, when push comes to shove, those in the brink of extinction can surprisingly survive and even excel. Earth is actually awash with the aqueous matter. Most mortals just disregarded the primary importance and power of the oceans. We have a lot of water in the ocean, and desalination is the key. I mean, high-tech desalination.